Well, if you're thinking about having an aquarium at your home, or if you already have one and you want some tips and tricks on how to maintain, well, today we are at the Four Mile Nature Preserve, and today Sam is gonna give us some advice. Hi, Sam.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Well, I love this because I grew up having an aquarium at home and I knew what it took to kind of like really maintain, but you know, sometimes you forget those things if you haven't had it around the house in a while. So tell us a little bit about, you know, some of the main things that people really should focus on when it comes to maintaining an aquarium at home.
Anything that goes into the tank is going to stay in the tank, right? So that's the number one thing you got to think about. Anything that goes into that tank is going to stay there until you do something to remove it, right? And so things that people don't think about is fish produce waste, right? Which is often invisible, you can't see it, right? So their waste is gonna break down into ammonia, which is a highly toxic compound. It's gonna end up hurting your fish if you leave it in the water, right? And so I have a filter system, right? And you think of a filter as removing you know, mechanical obstructions, right? So if I've got like floating plants in the water that are clogging up the filter, that's gonna remove them, right? Or anything else that might be floating in the water. But it also does biological filtration, right? So we have bacterial colonies that form naturally inside the filter system and inside the substrate of the fish tank, right? And you might think you don't want bacteria in your fish tank, but that's not true, you do. There are some beneficial bacteria, right? So the bacterial colonies that form inside your filter are going to break down that ammonia that the fish produce into the compounds nitrite and then further into the compound nitrate, which is much less toxic for fish than ammonia is. At the end of that cycle, if you didn't have plants in your tank, what you would need to do is perform regular water changes. And a lot of people understand that part of the fish keeping hobby. You do need to perform water changes and cycle out some of that old water and replenish it as you go. Having plants in there adds an extra step into the equation, right? Those plants are going to be taking up those nitrates in the water to use as resources for growing, right? So having a lot of plants in the tank reduces that need for frequent water changes. So I honestly, on this tank, I probably do a small water change, maybe 20 or 30% once a month.
What kind of plants do you recommend when you are starting an aquarium?
Absolutely. So there are some plants that will grow really quickly, no matter what kind of lights you have on them, no matter what kind of system you have. One of those is Java fern, which I actually don't have Java fern in this tank. Java fern is a plant that you can find in pretty much any fish store. What I have in here, I have Ludwigia, which is the plant with the larger leaves in there, and then the skinny leaves, that's called Rotala. And there are many different species of both those kinds of plants. Again, very common in the fish trade. You should be able to find them at any decent fish store. Both those species are very fast growing. They pull a lot of those toxic compounds out of the water, and so they are very good. Anything that grows quickly is going to be using a lot more of those nitrates quicker, right? And then I have things like hair algae. Now that's an unfortunate byproduct. I didn't intentionally put that in there, but it's still benefiting the aquarium. It's still pulling those nitrates out of the system. It doesn't look very pretty, but the fish don't mind it. They're happy.